In recent months, one question has been popping up more frequently than ever. When will stimulus checks go out again? For millions of Americans struggling to make ends meet, whether due to rising living costs, reduced income, or economic instability, this question is far from casual curiosity. It's a lifeline, a matter of survival. Today, we're going to break down exactly what needs to happen for the next round of stimulus checks to be approved and sent out. We'll explore the current state of the economy, the triggers that usually lead to stimulus action, and why the coming months could be pivotal. Now, let's get straight to the heart of the matter. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know one thing is always true. Stimulus packages and direct payments are almost always tied to the health of the economy. It doesn't matter what politicians say in speeches or what headlines scream on social media. If the economy is strong and stable, stimulus is unlikely. If the economy is in crisis or showing serious cracks, that's when the wheels of stimulus begin to turn. And make no mistake, we've been in a period of significant economic turbulence. Executive orders are being signed frequently. Trade relationships are shifting. Tariffs are being applied and expanded. Prices have been unpredictable. And now, as we look toward the remaining months of 2025, the question is whether these disruptions will snowball into something much larger. History shows the pattern. Stimulus follows. Disruption, to understand where we're heading, it helps to look back. Over the last 25 years, there's been a clear pattern. Major economic disruptions have often triggered massive government stimulus responses. The dot-com bubble, early 2000s. When the tech market overheated and then collapsed, the economy slid into a downturn. Stimulus was one of the tools used to ease that pain. The housing crash of 2008-2009. Easy lending and the subprime mortgage crisis led to a devastating recession. Once again, stimulus programs, including direct support, were rolled out to revive the economy. The 2020-2021 shutdowns. The global crisis forced closures across industries, plunging the U.S. into a deep but sudden recession. In response, we saw multiple rounds of direct stimulus payments, trillions in aid, and aggressive interest rate cuts. Each of these events followed a familiar pattern: disruption, economic pain, government intervention, stimulus. The new catalyst: tariffs and trade shifts. So, what could serve as the next big trigger? Many analysts, economists, and even political leaders are pointing to one factor that's already underway: tariffs. Tariffs, essentially taxes on imported goods, might sound like a behind-the-scenes trade tool. But in reality, they can ripple through the entire economy. Higher tariffs mean higher prices on everyday goods, tighter profit margins for businesses, and strained trade relationships with key partners. Right now, the U.S. is heavily involved in trade negotiations and tensions with countries like China, our third-largest trading partner, Mexico, and Canada. This adds a layer of instability to an economy that, many argue, has been more fragile than it appears. Which brings us to a critical question. Was the economy of the last 4 years truly strong, or was it artificially inflated? Between 2020 and 2021, over $6 trillion was pumped into the economy to keep it afloat. That flood of money created the illusion of stability and even growth. But as that support has faded, the cracks have started to show. What needs to happen for stimulus to return? Here's the blunt truth. For stimulus checks to be approved, the economy usually needs to show clear signs of contraction or crisis. Lawmakers don't move preemptively. They act when the pain becomes politically and economically unavoidable. So, what are the key signs we're watching? A noticeable economic downturn. This could mean falling GDP, widespread layoffs, or declining consumer spending. Market instability. Sharp drops in the stock market or housing market often prompt swift action. Trade disruptions escalating into recessionary pressure. Tariffs could be the final push. Public and political pressure. When enough voters feel the squeeze, politicians take notice, especially in election years. When these factors align, stimulus packages are drafted, debated, and often rushed through Congress. The Federal Reserve usually plays its part by cutting interest rates aggressively, making borrowing cheaper and encouraging spending. Are we there yet? Not quite. Despite the challenges, many experts argue that the economy hasn't hit the pain threshold yet. Some sectors are still performing relatively well. Unemployment, while inching up in some areas, hasn't spiked dramatically nationwide. Consumer confidence is shaky but not collapsing. That said, the trajectory is concerning. With tariffs tightening trade flows and costs rising, the pressure is mounting. And if history is any guide, once the downturn becomes undeniable, the response will be swift. Multi-trillion-dollar stimulus packages, direct payments to households, and emergency measures to keep the economy from free-falling. When could this happen? Predicting an exact date is impossible. But consider this. The remaining months of 2025 are crucial. We're in a politically sensitive period, with debates intensifying over economic strategy, trade policies, and household financial relief. If the current path continues, if tariffs slow trade, prices strain households, and growth cools, the calls for stimulus will get louder. How much could stimulus checks be this time? That depends on the scale of the downturn and the political appetite. In past rounds, we've seen checks ranging from $600 to $1,400 to even $2,000. Some have suggested that future checks might need to be higher, perhaps in the range of $2,000 to $3,000 per adult, especially considering how much inflation has eroded purchasing power since 2020. This is why I asked at the start, what number would help you most? Because when lawmakers decide on figures, they often look at public demand and feedback. Your voice, believe it or not, does matter. To put it plainly, stimulus will not arrive until the economy faces enough pressure to demand it. It's not about fairness or promises. It's about economics and political momentum. The more severe the downturn, the faster and larger the response tends to be. So, what can you do in the meantime? Stay informed. Prepare for multiple scenarios. If you rely on fixed income, Social Security, or limited savings, think about what adjustments you can make now, because when the tipping point arrives, things tend to move quickly, both down and up. And of course, keep your voice heard. Comment, call your representatives, and participate in discussions that shape these decisions.